They think a little bridge can't hold the weight of their arrogance. Emily muttered under her breath as she watched Karen Whitman maneuver the massive cement truck across the fragile span, sunlight glinting off the polished chrome and making the scene almost surreal. The morning was quiet except for the low rumble of the truck's engine, a sound that seemed too heavy for the quaint wooden structure beneath it. Emily's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of a challenge she had been preparing for in secret. Every plank, every bolt of her little bridge inspected, calculated, reinforced in ways invisible to the careless eye. The HOA meeting had been merciless the week before, with Karen standing tall in her designer heels, arms crossed, eyes full of scorn, delivering a monologue that belittled Emily's property, her intelligence, and even her patience. Emily had nodded, smiled politely, and retreated to the privacy of her small backyard, where she had pored over engineering manuals and structural diagrams, drawing plans in the margins of her notebook, imagining a day when her knowledge could speak louder than the words of a wealthy bully. As the cement truck edged closer, the boards of the bridge groaned softly under weight, a subtle reminder that Emily's little world was about to collide with the arrogance of privilege. She felt the weight of expectation not as pressure, but as fuel, a fire that had been quietly building as Karen boasted about how she owned the street, the neighborhood, the rules that governed everyone else's life. Emily's gaze flicked to the community watching from behind manicured hedges and wrought iron fences, whispers carrying across the sunlit lawns, some mocking, some curious, none realizing that the day's events were a prelude to a lesson far beyond the superficial disputes over property lines. She adjusted the small sensor hidden at the side of the bridge, a device no one had noticed, tiny but capable, part of a system she had pieced together using her knowledge, her patience, her hours of silent preparation. The cement truck rolled forward, Karen's laughter echoing, confident, careless, a sound that Emily had memorized and now used as a metronome for timing the final adjustments. Every foot of the vehicle that passed, every creak in the wood, every glance from the neighbors became part of a silent choreography Emily had been orchestrating, her intellect masked by calm observation. She allowed a slow smile to form, a quiet acknowledgement that the moment of reckoning had arrived, that the delicate balance between recklessness and precision, privilege and preparation, was about to tilt in her favor. The sun climbed higher, shadows shifting across the bridge, the air tense with anticipation as concrete wheels met wood, yet Emily's careful design held firm, the bridge responding exactly as she had calculated, bending, supporting, guiding without breaking. In that suspended moment, she could almost hear the laughter of those who doubted her fade, replaced by a realization that subtle knowledge and foresight could wield more power than wealth or bluster, and she felt a deep, satisfying certainty that the story of a little bridge in a quiet neighborhood was about to become unforgettable, a quiet triumph over arrogance, a careful, meticulous victory that spoke louder than any confrontation or insult could ever have done. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Emily Harper. Emily stepped away from the bridge, her eyes scanning the neighborhood, taking in the manicured lawns, the white picket fences, and the rows of neatly painted houses that seemed almost too perfect, a stark contrast to the meticulous and sometimes messy reality of her own property. The sun was now higher in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched across the street, illuminating the quiet faces of neighbors who had come to witness the unfolding tension, some curious, some skeptical, some openly critical. Inside her small but well-kept home, Emily had spent countless hours planning and calculating, her notebooks filled with sketches, measurements, and precise annotations, each page a testament to her patience and quiet determination. She knew every detail of her bridge, every inch of timber, every joint and fastener, as if the structure had been an extension of her own body, a silent ally in her endeavor to prove that intelligence and preparation could outmatch bluster and privilege. Karen Whitman, on the other hand, continued her show of confidence, chatting loudly with other HOA members, her voice carrying across the street, punctuated by laughter and exaggerated gestures, the kind that commanded attention but revealed little of actual substance. Emily observed without a word, letting the tension build naturally, her mind calculating the timing of the next steps, the subtle adjustments needed to ensure her plan worked flawlessly. The neighborhood, usually a scene of polite smiles and quiet routines, had become a stage for a silent duel, a contrast of forces that was almost cinematic in its clarity. One side, flashy and entitled, thriving on appearances and assumptions. The other, quietly competent, patient, and prepared for a moment when all assumptions could be challenged and overturned. Emily moved carefully around her property, adjusting the positioning of small indicators, checking the tension on hidden supports, and confirming the alignment of weights that, if deployed correctly, would illustrate her foresight in a way that could not be ignored. She took a moment to breathe, letting the warm air carry the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers, the serenity a stark contrast to the anticipation building in her chest, a reminder that her work was both a technical challenge and an exercise in composure. As Karen strutted back toward her vehicle, Emily caught the glance of a neighbor, a young man who had previously dismissed her efforts as trivial, and saw a flicker of doubt cross his face, the realization that the person he had underestimated might have a depth of skill and understanding he had never considered. Every creak of the bridge, every subtle vibration, every watchful eye became part of Emily's mental map, her awareness extending beyond the physical structures into the realm of human expectation and perception. She understood that the upcoming hours would test not just her planning and technical knowledge, but also her ability to remain calm and poised under scrutiny, demonstrating that dignity and intelligence could persist even in the face of open ridicule. The quiet rhythm of her thoughts contrasted sharply with the noisy confidence of Karen and the other HOA members, creating a tension that seemed almost tangible, a web of expectation, anticipation, and potential revelation. Emily knew the bridge was more than wood and nails. It was a symbol of her preparation, her resolve, and her capacity to turn observation and intelligence into an advantage that could reshape perceptions and alter the balance of authority in this small, tightly knit community. The day unfolded slowly, each moment stretching with potential, the warm sunlight catching on Emily's hair and the edges of her sketches, highlighting the contrast between the visible world and the invisible planning that lay behind her calm exterior. She smiled faintly, not at Karen or the watching neighbors, but at the quiet knowledge that every step, every adjustment, every careful calculation was bringing her closer to the moment where all doubt would dissipate and her quiet competence would finally speak louder than any insult, a demonstration of patience, preparation, and quiet mastery that could not be ignored or dismissed. Karen Whitman paced along the edge of the driveway, her designer heels clicking sharply against the concrete, while Emily lingered near the side of her house, calm and observant, the sunlight catching the soft waves of her hair as she adjusted the small instruments she had installed around the bridge. The day had warmed, the air carrying the scent of freshly mown grass and blooming hydrangeas, a stark contrast to the tension that had quietly settled over the street. Emily watched Karen interact with the other members of the HOA, their voices rising and falling in patterns of assumed authority, laughter punctuating statements meant to assert dominance. Yet Emily noticed subtle slips in body language, the hesitation in glances, the slight frowns when instructions were misunderstood or ignored. Each detail fed into Emily's mental map, a lattice of observation and strategy, a quiet preparation that contrasted sharply with the flamboyant confidence of Karen and her allies. From her position near the bridge, Emily could see the way sunlight glinted off the metal fixtures and the polished surfaces of the trucks and vehicles lined along the street, a reminder of the wealth and power being wielded without thought of consequence. Yet Emily's mind was anchored in precision and anticipation, every plank of wood, every tension cable, every weight distribution calculated with exacting care. She knew that the forthcoming interactions were more than social theater. They were a test of perception, patience, and the subtle orchestration of cause and effect that could shift influence without confrontation. The neighborhood, often quiet and orderly, was now a stage of silent tension, the rhythm of life punctuated by measured movements, whispered observations, and the calculated timing of Emily's adjustments. As Karen approached the bridge again, boasting to an observer about her influence, and the ease with which she could disregard rules and property, Emily noted the cadence of her speech, the inflection in her tone, the small pauses that hinted at assumptions of compliance. Emily's fingers brushed the edge of the hidden sensors, checking calibration and alignment, a ritual as much for reassurance as for practical function. She could feel the potential energy of the day building, a subtle charge in the air that mirrored her own focus and readiness. Neighbors gathered at a respectful distance, their eyes shifting between Emily and Karen, the social dynamics layering upon the physical space, adding pressure and expectation in equal measure. Emily moved deliberately, making minor adjustments to weights and indicators, ensuring that every element would respond exactly as intended when the moment arrived, her confidence rooted in preparation and understanding rather than reaction. The tension, though invisible, was palpable, a quiet contrast to the ostentatious gestures of Karen and the murmurs of the onlookers, a reminder that influence could be engineered and anticipated, that patience and foresight often carried more weight than showy declarations of control. Emily's gaze swept across the scene, taking in the subtle reactions of the crowd, the shifts in stance, the micro-expressions, cataloging them as part of a mental ledger that would inform the precise timing of the coming demonstration. Every minute adjustment, every observation, every silent note in her mind contributed to the growing clarity of her plan, the anticipation of a moment where subtlety, skill, and intelligence would culminate in an undeniable illustration of capability. The warmth of the afternoon sun seemed to spotlight Emily, illuminating not just her physical form but the quiet authority of her preparation, a testament to patience and insight that would soon speak louder than any proclamation or show of force. In this suspended time, with the neighborhood watching, with Karen confident and unaware of the intricate orchestration unfolding around her, Emily embodied a quiet mastery of observation, strategy, and anticipation, the invisible threads of cause and effect weaving a tapestry that promised revelation, respect, and a clear demonstration that intellect and preparation could outshine arrogance and assumed dominance. Emily stepped closer to the bridge, her eyes tracing the lines of timber and steel as if reading a story written in wood and iron, each detail a part of the plan she had nurtured in silence for weeks. The neighborhood had settled into a tense curiosity, residents peeking from behind curtains, leaning over fences, or standing silently on porches, their whispers mixing with the soft hum of distant traffic. Karen Whitman continued her performance of superiority, gesturing expansively, speaking to an invisible audience of influence and entitlement, her voice carrying across the sunlit street, confident that her presence alone commanded attention. Emily, by contrast, moved with deliberate calm, adjusting the alignment of small weights and checking the responsiveness of hidden sensors that would subtly guide the outcome she had envisioned. She felt the rhythm of the day as if it were a pulse, each step of Karen, each shift in light and shadow, each glance from a neighbor contributing to the unfolding story. The warm afternoon sun highlighted the contrast between Emily's composed precision and Karen's ostentatious gestures, the visual tension mirrored by the subtle psychological dance playing out among onlookers. Emily's hands hovered over a small dial, a final adjustment to ensure the delicate balance she had engineered would respond perfectly, translating knowledge into influence without confrontation. She could hear the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, the distant bark of a dog, and the faint murmur of conversations, all blending into the backdrop against which her silent strategy would unfold. Every observer was a variable, every micro-expression a signal, and Emily catalogued each one in the quiet of her mind, ensuring that when the moment arrived, she would act with exact timing. The bridge itself, a modest structure under normal circumstances, had become a focal point of anticipation and intrigue, its hidden reinforcements and subtle cues invisible to the untrained eye but meticulously designed to reveal insight and capability. Emily imagined the potential surprise on Karen's face when she realized that the assumptions she had built her confidence upon would not dictate the outcome. Instead, the day would unfold according to precision, foresight, and quiet ingenuity, turning observation and intellect into a force more compelling than any declaration of authority. Emily's focus extended to the edges of her property, the positions of shrubs and flower beds, the angle of sunlight striking her instruments, all contributing to a symphony of subtle movements and adjustments that would culminate in undeniable clarity of intent and mastery. Neighbors shifted uneasily, sensing the undercurrent of control and calculation beneath Emily's serene exterior, a contrast to the flamboyant gestures and overly confident statements of Karen, whose attention remained fixed on appearances rather than the substance quietly orchestrating the day. Emily breathed steadily, the warmth of the afternoon sun and the scent of the garden grounding her, reinforcing patience and observation as her greatest tools, a silent promise that intellect and preparation would soon assert themselves unmistakably. Each passing minute added to the anticipation, the layering of social dynamics, environmental awareness, and technical preparation converging into a moment poised for revelation. Emily's eyes lifted briefly to Karen, who remained unaware of the detailed choreography taking place under her nose, the misalignment between perception and reality setting the stage for a transformation in understanding and respect. Every adjustment, every calculation, every quiet observation brought Emily closer to a moment where patience, knowledge, and composure would assert themselves as the true measures of capability and influence in this small, sunlit street, where appearances had long overshadowed insight, and where a quiet demonstration of competence would rewrite expectations and leave a lasting impression on all who watched. Emily's attention remained fixed on the bridge, her mind running through a precise sequence of observations and adjustments, each one a small note in a symphony of preparation that she had conducted in silence for days. The neighborhood seemed to hold its breath, the usual sounds of children playing and lawnmowers humming replaced by an almost tangible anticipation, the kind that made the air feel denser, charged with expectation. Karen Whitman continued her confident pacing, occasionally glancing back to see if Emily was reacting, her posture proud and unyielding, her voice carrying across the street as she made remarks about property lines and regulations, assuming that her authority was absolute, and that no subtle strategy could undermine it. Emily adjusted a small sensor along the side of the bridge, checking for responsiveness and alignment, her fingers steady and movements deliberate, a demonstration of quiet control amidst the visible chaos of arrogance and performance. The afternoon sun had shifted, casting warmer tones across the wooden planks and the surrounding yards, highlighting the contrast between Emily's calm composure and Karen's flamboyant display of power. Each passerby seemed caught in the unfolding tension, shifting their weight, craning their necks, curious about the unfolding narrative that played out more in anticipation than in immediate action. Emily's mind traced calculations of weight, balance, and timing, imagining the subtle cues that would guide the events toward her intended outcome, knowing that the most significant influence often came from preparation rather than confrontation. She observed Karen's gestures, the tilt of her head, the subtle emphasis in her speech, cataloging each detail as part of a larger pattern that could be interpreted and acted upon at the right moment. Emily could feel the rhythm of the neighborhood's attention, the way each step, each glance, each whisper contributed to an unseen chorus of expectation, a stage for a demonstration of intellect and foresight. The bridge itself, while modest, had become a central element in this interplay, its structure reinforced quietly, invisibly, capable of responding in precise ways that would reveal Emily's planning without a single word of explanation. Emily took a breath, the warmth of the day and the scent of flowering bushes grounding her, reinforcing patience and clarity of focus as her greatest allies. She could see the small reactions in the neighbors' eyes, the slight tilts of heads, the barely perceptible gasps or nods of recognition, all pieces of the social landscape she navigated with precision. Karen continued to speak, her words meant to dominate, yet Emily perceived the subtle cracks in the assumed confidence, the tiny moments of hesitation that hinted at underestimation. Each observation was a thread woven into a larger tapestry, the culmination of quiet skill, understanding, and preparation. Emily's hands hovered over the small instruments one last time, ready to make minor adjustments as the bridge and its hidden mechanisms interacted with the environment, knowing that when the moment of revelation arrived, it would not only demonstrate capability but also alter perceptions, quietly asserting that knowledge, foresight, and composure were forces as potent as wealth, status, or ostentatious display. The day's energy felt concentrated, a tension between visible dominance and invisible preparation, and Emily, standing silently amidst it all, embodied the promise of insight and the power of careful planning, ready to transform observation into undeniable influence in the calmest, most measured way possible. Emily's plan began to unfold in subtle, precise ways as the afternoon light shifted across the neighborhood, casting long, warm shadows that traced the edges of the bridge and the surrounding yards. Every small detail she had prepared, the alignment of sensors, the distribution of weight, the hidden markers she had installed, was now positioned to respond exactly as she intended, each element a silent participant in the orchestration of consequence. Karen Whitman continued her confident movements, speaking loudly to any neighbor within earshot, her voice imbued with the assumption that visibility equated to influence, her gestures sweeping and commanding, yet failing to perceive the intricate preparation beneath the surface. Emily's eyes followed each of Karen's steps, noting the rhythm, the timing, the micro-adjustments in posture and expression that revealed overconfidence and underestimation, signals that her careful observations had anticipated. The neighborhood itself had become an audience to attention that was both visible and invisible, the social dynamics layering over the physical space in ways that heightened anticipation and expectation. Emily moved slowly along the perimeter of the bridge, hands brushing lightly against calibrated instruments, making minute adjustments, each motion deliberate, each decision informed by hours of study and careful planning. The warm breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of flowers and freshly cut grass, a gentle contrast to the concentrated focus and quiet intensity that defined the scene. Neighbors shifted subtly, leaning forward, tilting their heads, caught in the unspoken drama of preparation and anticipation, sensing that the visible display of confidence was only part of the story, that beneath the surface, observation, knowledge, and foresight were quietly shaping the outcome. Emily felt a growing sense of clarity and control, her mind cataloging every detail, the light shifting across the bridge, the cadence of Karen's speech, the subtle movements of nearby onlookers, each variable incorporated into a mental map that guided her final adjustments. She smiled faintly, appreciating the precision of the interplay, the harmony of careful observation and meticulous execution that contrasted with the unchecked assumptions of those around her. Every adjustment she made was subtle, imperceptible to anyone not attuned to her methods, yet each would contribute to the eventual revelation, the demonstration of skill and foresight that required no loud announcement or visible confrontation to achieve. The bridge, sturdy yet modest, responded to her careful preparation, its hidden supports and calibrated markers poised to translate anticipation into measurable, undeniable consequence, a testament to Emily's patience, intellect, and strategic thinking. Karen, unaware of the intricate system at work, continued to radiate confidence, relying on status and visibility, assuming control through volume and presence rather than understanding and preparation. Emily's gaze swept across the assembled neighbors, noting the subtle signs of curiosity, surprise, and recognition, the way they were beginning to register that the quiet individual they had underestimated possessed a depth of capability that commanded respect without confrontation. Every element, the physical environment, the timing of light and sound, the reactions of those around her, was now aligned, converging toward the moment where observation, preparation, and intellect would seamlessly demonstrate their power, quietly, effectively, and unmistakably. Emily exhaled softly, her composure unwavering, the warmth of the afternoon sun grounding her as she waited for the precise moment when the culmination of planning, patience, and insight would transform assumptions into recognition, revealing that true influence often operates not in noise or bravado but in careful design and disciplined execution. An invisible current that reshapes perception and asserts competence with clarity and dignity. Emily watched as the afternoon sun dipped lower, the light softening across the street and bathing the neighborhood in a warm, golden glow that highlighted the textures of wood, stone, and foliage. Every detail she had arranged, every subtle calibration and adjustment, was now in place, each component of her plan waiting for the precise moment to demonstrate the quiet power of preparation and insight. Karen Whitman continued her animated commentary, her voice loud and commanding, assuming that visibility and volume equaled control, unaware of the intricate orchestration unfolding just beneath the surface. Emily observed her movements, noting every shift in stance, every flicker of expression, cataloging them with careful attention as part of the mental map she had constructed over countless hours of planning. The neighbors, drawn by curiosity and the unusual tension in the air, leaned forward, their attention caught between the apparent authority of Karen and the silent composure of Emily, sensing that something remarkable was about to reveal itself. Emily stepped onto the bridge with careful grace, her movements deliberate and precise, each step aligned with the subtle instruments and markers she had installed, ensuring that her preparation would guide the unfolding events exactly as she intended. The wooden planks responded as she had anticipated, flexing slightly, the hidden supports distributing weight in a manner invisible to the casual observer yet perfectly controlled by her design. Karen glanced toward the bridge, a faint furrow of concern crossing her face, though she quickly masked it with an assured smile, failing to perceive the layers of subtle engineering and foresight that Emily had woven into the scene. Emily's hands hovered over small dials and indicators, making the final micro-adjustments with steady focus, translating the quiet observations and precise calculations into action without a word, without a gesture that could betray the depth of her preparation. The air seemed to thrum with anticipation, each sound, the distant hum of traffic, the soft rustle of leaves, the murmur of neighbors' whispers, blending into a backdrop against which Emily's plan would soon manifest. She felt the tension of observation, the weight of expectation, yet her composure remained unshaken, anchored by knowledge and the certainty that careful preparation would outmatch any assumption or display of authority. The bridge, modest in appearance but remarkable in design, was poised to reveal the invisible expertise that Emily had cultivated, each hidden adjustment and reinforcement translating into a silent demonstration of capability and foresight. Karen's gestures grew slightly more pronounced, a sign of the mounting awareness that control might not be as absolute as she had assumed, though she still had no idea of the quiet forces at play beneath the surface. Emily observed the subtle changes in posture and attention of the gathered neighbors, noting recognition and curiosity, micro-expressions of realization that the person they had underestimated might now be about to redefine their perception entirely. Every element, the bridge, the environment, the timing of light and shadow, the subtle adjustments, and the social dynamics, aligned perfectly, orchestrated in a way that required no confrontation, no declaration, only precision, insight, and patience. Emily exhaled softly, feeling the culmination of hours of observation and planning, a quiet satisfaction in the harmony of design, anticipation, and execution, knowing that the unfolding moment would speak volumes, revealing intellect, composure, and foresight as forces more compelling than loudness, status, or assumed control. The scene, bathed in warm late afternoon light, held a suspended clarity, every detail contributing to the inevitable revelation that Emily's skill and preparation would soon illuminate, a silent but undeniable testament to the power of foresight, strategy, and quiet mastery. The neighborhood grew quiet as Emily stepped back from the bridge, her presence calm and assured, a subtle shift in posture signaling the completion of her careful orchestration. Neighbors exchanged glances, some mouths slightly open in surprise, others nodding slowly, recognition dawning in their expressions as the invisible intelligence behind the day's events became clear. Karen Whitman froze mid-sentence, the confident gestures that had dominated the afternoon suddenly feeling smaller, less certain, as if the assumptions she had relied upon were quietly unraveling. Emily's preparation, the hours of observation, the delicate adjustments, all combined to create a result that spoke more loudly than any words could, a demonstration of foresight and skill executed without confrontation or spectacle. The bridge, modest yet meticulously reinforced, had fulfilled its purpose, its hidden mechanisms subtly revealing the depth of Emily's planning, drawing attention to competence and careful thought rather than volume or status. The gathered neighbors began to murmur, the tone shifting from casual curiosity to genuine respect, some whispering acknowledgments of Emily's intelligence, others noting the precise execution that had transformed what could have been a moment of tension into a clear lesson in observation and preparation. Karen, recovering slowly, allowed a small, almost imperceptible nod, a recognition of insight and planning that she had underestimated, a realization that presence and authority could be matched, and even surpassed, by patience and knowledge. Emily felt a quiet satisfaction, her calm composure a contrast to the visible display of confidence that had defined the day, knowing that the impact of her actions extended beyond the immediate moment, influencing perception and respect within the neighborhood. The sun continued its descent, casting long, golden rays across the street, illuminating the bridge and surrounding homes with a warm glow that highlighted the contrast between visible wealth and hidden preparation, between outward assumptions and quiet mastery. Observers shifted, some stepping closer to examine the bridge, others speaking in hushed tones about the depth of planning required to achieve such precise outcomes, all evidence of the subtle influence Emily had orchestrated through patience, observation, and technical skill. Emily remained composed, watching the reactions, noting the changing dynamics, aware that respect and recognition often arrived quietly, without fanfare, and that the most effective demonstration of capability was one that revealed itself naturally through consequence and execution. The day, once tense with expectation and uncertainty, had transformed into a scene of acknowledgement and understanding, a testament to the power of preparation, intellect, and foresight in shaping perception and outcome. As neighbors returned to their routines, the impression left by Emily's calm and precise orchestration lingered, a reminder that true influence often operates invisibly, through skillful observation and deliberate action, quietly asserting competence and earning respect without confrontation or noise, leaving a lasting understanding of the value of patience, planning, and thoughtful execution in the hearts and minds of all who witnessed it. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting long, golden shadows across the neighborhood and bathing the bridge and surrounding homes in a warm, forgiving light. Emily stood quietly at the edge of her property, her posture calm and assured, observing the subtle shifts in the faces around her. Neighbors exchanged knowing glances, the murmurs growing into whispers of admiration as they recognized the quiet brilliance of her orchestration, the thought and care that had turned a simple bridge into a testament of preparation and insight. Karen Whitman, standing a few yards away, allowed herself a hesitant smile, the realization settling in that assumptions built on status and visibility could not replace knowledge, patience, and careful planning. Emily's mind replayed the steps of the day, each observation, adjustment, and calculation converging into a coherent whole that had transformed tension into respect without a single raised voice or overt confrontation. The bridge, still sturdy and composed under its own weight, served as a quiet symbol of her foresight, every hidden reinforcement and calibration a silent demonstration of capability and discipline, a contrast to the loud gestures of authority that had failed to grasp the depth of preparation. The neighborhood seemed to breathe collectively, the tension dissipating into an appreciation of skill and thoughtful execution, the subtle power of observation and anticipation now evident to all who had watched. Emily felt a sense of satisfaction that was not prideful but measured, a calm acknowledgement that careful attention, planning, and patience could yield results that demanded recognition without spectacle. Karen, no longer performing, began to engage in quieter conversation, her tone more reflective, an unspoken acknowledgement of the lesson that had unfolded before her. Observers moved closer to examine the bridge, noting details that had been invisible before, the way careful design could translate into practical outcomes, and the impact of intellect and foresight over volume and display. Emily's attention lingered on the interplay of light and shadow across the scene, the warm afternoon sun highlighting textures, angles, and details that mirrored the intricacy of the day's events, a visual reinforcement of the precision that had guided her actions. Each neighbor, each subtle reaction, each careful observation contributed to a collective understanding that influence and respect are often earned through preparation and composure rather than assertion and prominence. As the day began to cool, Emily felt a quiet triumph, a sense of clarity that her methodical approach had reshaped perceptions, not through confrontation, but through intelligent design and patience. The bridge stood as a lasting reminder, a silent testament to what could be achieved when careful thought met disciplined execution, an emblem of respect, foresight, and the understated power of preparation. Emily's gaze swept across the neighborhood one last time, noting the softened expressions, the nods of recognition, and the quiet acknowledgement that competence, patience, and insight were forces that no arrogance or assumed authority could easily overcome, leaving the street infused with a subtle but lasting understanding that true capability often reveals itself in calm, deliberate action and measured brilliance.